Scary lovers, welcome back for the final part of my Halloween special. Please like and subscribe if you like scary stories like me. Her mother grabbed a kitchen chair and hurled it at him, buying Lucy a precious moment to escape. Outside, she sprinted toward the woods again, heart pounding in her chest. With the moon illuminating her path, she darted through the trees, the sounds of pursuit growing fainter. She didn't stop running until she found a clearing, collapsing against a tree to catch her breath. But then, she remembered her parents. They were still in the house with that monster. Panic surged anew as she pushed herself back to her feet, ready to fight for her family. Determined, she turned and raced back toward her house, adrenaline propelling her forward. As she approached, she saw the front door wide open, the darkness inside swallowing the light. She hesitated for a moment, fear creeping in, but she couldn't abandon them. Lucy stepped inside, heart pounding. "Mom? Dad?" she called, her voice trembling. No answer. Silence hung heavily in the air. She crept through the living room, her eyes scanning for any sign of life. The kitchen was empty, but she noticed the shattered chair on the floor. Felt like a warning. Suddenly, she heard a thud upstairs. Her heart raced as she climbed the stairs, each creak echoing in the silence. "Mom! Dad!" she whispered, desperation clawing at her throat. As she reached the top, she spotted her parents' bedroom door slightly ajar. Gathering her courage, she pushed it open. The room was dark, but she could make out shapes. "Lucy!" Her mother's voice broke through the stillness. Relief flooded her as she rushed inside. Her father stood protectively in front of her mother, a kitchen knife gripped in his hand. "They're safe," Lucy cried, but her relief was short-lived. Just then, the killer appeared at the top of the stairs, a sinister grin on his face. "You thought you could escape?" he taunted, stepping into the room. Lucy's heart sank as she realized they were cornered. "We need to fight back," she whispered urgently to her father. In a flash, her father lunged forward, knife aimed at the killer. But the killer was quick, dodging to the side and grabbing her father's arm, twisting it until the knife clattered to the floor. "Now let's finish this," he growled, turning toward Lucy and her mother. Thinking quickly, Lucy spotted a heavy lamp on the nightstand. With no time to waste, she grabbed it and swung it at the killer with all her strength. The lamp hit him squarely in the head, and he stumbled back, dazed. "Run!" Lucy shouted, pulling her mother toward the door. They bolted down the stairs, Lucy glancing back to see the killer regaining his footing, rage igniting in his eyes. They rushed through the living room and out the front door, the night air hitting them like a shockwave. "Where do we go?" her mother cried, panic rising again. "Into the woods. We can't let him find us," Lucy shouted, leading the way into the dark embrace of the trees. They ran deeper into the woods, the underbrush scratching at their legs. Lucy's heart raced as she fought to keep her family together. They needed to find safety and a way to outsmart the killer. After a few moments, they came across a large fallen tree, its trunk wide enough to provide cover. "Here," Lucy urged, guiding her parents behind it. They crouched low, listening intently. The sounds of the forest enveloped them, but the killer's laughter echoed faintly, sending shivers down Lucy's spine. "You can't hide forever," he taunted. As they waited, Lucy's mind raced. They needed a plan. She looked around, spotting a large branch nearby. "I can create a distraction," she whispered to her parents. Her father nodded, his face pale but resolute. "Be careful, Lucy." With a deep breath, she grabbed the branch and carefully moved away from their hiding spot. She positioned herself a good distance from the fallen tree, raising the branch high. "Hey, over here!" she shouted, her voice carrying through the trees. The killer's laughter stopped abruptly. "Lucy?" he called out, his voice low and menacing. Lucy felt a surge of adrenaline as he turned in her direction. She took off running in the opposite direction, heart pounding as she hoped he would follow her. The branches whipped against her as she sprinted, the darkness closing in. She could hear the killer's footsteps gaining on her, laughter ringing in her ears. "You can't escape, little witch." Just when she thought he was close enough to catch her, she spotted a small stream. Dashing toward it, she leaped over the bank and into the water, hoping to mask her scent. The cold water enveloped her, shocking her system, but she pressed on, moving downstream. She glanced back and saw the killer hesitating at the water's edge, frustration etched on his face. "Where are you?" he growled, looking around, trying to sense her presence. Lucy used the current to her advantage, floating a bit downstream before climbing out on the opposite bank. She took a moment to catch her breath, shaking from the cold and fear. Knowing she couldn't stop, she moved deeper into the woods, desperately searching for a place to hide. Eventually, she found a small hollow in the ground, just large enough for her to crouch inside. As she settled in, her heart racing, she listened intently. The sounds of the forest surrounded her, but the killer's voice had faded. She took a deep breath, hoping she had evaded him for good. Minutes passed, feeling like hours. Just as she began to feel a flicker of hope, she heard a distant noise, the crack of a branch. She held her breath, her body tensing. "Lucy!" the killer's voice called out, echoing through the trees. "I know you're here. This is pointless." Fear surged through her again, but she knew she had to stay silent. The minutes dragged on, every sound amplifying her anxiety. Then, she heard voices in the distance, shouting, lights flashing. It was the police. Relief washed over her, but she knew she couldn't reveal herself yet. The killer, however, seemed to sense the change. "You think they'll save you?" he sneered, his voice cold and taunting. "You're mine, and you know it." As the voices grew closer, Lucy felt a mix of fear and hope. She held tight to the edge of the hollow, praying for the police to find her and for the killer to be distracted long enough for her to escape. Suddenly, the underbrush rustled again. She glanced up and saw the killer approaching her hiding spot, his eyes scanning the area, searching for her. Just then, the police burst into the clearing, flashlights sweeping across the scene. "Police, show yourself," a voice called. The killer turned sharply, momentarily distracted. "No, this isn't over," he shouted, but Lucy ran to the police. The killer ran in the opposite direction to avoid being captured. As dawn broke, she was reunited with her parents. The world outside bathed in soft light, but the sense of dread lingered. What had really happened? Who was that man? And was it truly over? As they made their way back to town, Lucy couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Months later, she learned of other disappearances in Everwood, and the whispers began again. Halloween approached once more, and with it, the realization that evil often wears a familiar face. Lucy stood at the edge of the woods, memories flooding back. The mansion stood in the distance, looming like a dark secret. Perhaps it was time to confront the past and discover what truly lurked in the shadows. With this, my Halloween special has come to an end. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please let me know down below what kind of stories you would like to hear more from. Like and subscribe if you're into scary stories like me. Happy Halloween! Stay safe and I'll see you tomorrow.